everything is always progressing, not regressing. Even in times when we feel we're going backwards, I believe the state of our soul is continuing its journey into perpetual healing. Most of you may know and be familiar with Silent Unity, otherwise known as the Unity Prayer Ministry. And it's a 7-day-a-week prayer service that is available via phone, email, etc. And who's tried to call Silent Unity? Yeah. And they used to be 24-hour support on the phone, but they've changed that a little bit. But you can still, it's still 7 days a week, and you can get phone or email or chat or through the app support. And it's been operating nonstop for 130 years. Isn't that amazing? And the thing that is even more remarkable to me, the vice president of Silent Unity, Linda Martella-Whitsitt, said that it's a fact that most prayer requests that come into Silent Unity are for physical healing. And healing is at the very heart of unity. I'll explain why. It happens to be that unity probably wouldn't exist if it weren't for the physical healing of our co-founders, Myrtle and Charles Fillmore. And the healing that they experienced subsequently caused flocks of people. They couldn't even get all the people in the building to gather in Kansas City. That's how Silent Unity was born. It was a huge letter writing campaign where they had to buy tons of typewriters and staff up the place. And they even built up a vegetarian restaurant as things grew and grew on the grounds at Unity Village. And who here has been to Unity Village? I actually have not been to Unity Village because I'm a pandemic ministerial baby, and during most of my schooling it was happening on Zoom, but I look forward to going there. But Unity Village got so big that it developed its own zip code. It still has its own zip code today. It has 5 chapels. It's amazing. They have a huge new event center there, but this was all built around, Charles and Myrtle weren't always prosperous. Prosperity happened. So let me back up a little bit and talk about Myrtle Fillmore. Myrtle Fillmore was very sick. She had tuberculosis and other ailments, and at the age of 40, she was given just 6 months to live. And in desperation, she attended a lecture in Kansas City by someone named E.B. Weeks. And although E.B. Weeks himself did not go on in fame, people quote him because this quote went on in fame. What he said and what she took away from his lecture propelled Unity into being. She took away from that lecture in the peak of her sickness, "I am a child of God, therefore I do not inherit sickness." Now, this child of God concept does not necessarily line up with current Unity theology because there's some implied separation here, isn't there? But it does lean into the concept of unity. I am one with God now. I am one with the divine, and that's where our healing power comes from. And if you remember one thing about unity, it's seeing through those eyes, seeing through the eyes of your own divinity. It's a lifelong journey, seeing more and more and more. It changes everything. It is the ministry of this place and of the 400 Unity churches around the world. So Myrtle, in this inspiration, she began to pull herself up to the table and began to talk to God directly and just pondering about this thing about, I'm a child of God and I don't inherit sickness. So what could that mean for me? And so she developed her own healing way. She wrote this in, it's also published in this book that I'm going to talk about in a minute. She wrote this in what at the time was the Unity magazine. And she wrote this, think about this, she wrote this 100 years ago. Quantum physics, people weren't talking about quantum physics 100 years ago. People weren't necessarily viewing women as leaders of spiritual movements 100 years ago, especially in Christianity. But it is women that really propelled the early days of unity to grow into what it is. So she wrote this: "Here is my key discovery. Life is simply a form of energy and has to be guided and directed in our body and by our intelligence. How do we communicate intelligence? By thinking and talking, of course. So, I told the life centers in my body, and I told my liver that it was not torpid or inert, but full of energy. I told the life in my stomach that it was not weak or inefficient, but energetic and strong and intelligent. And I told the life in my abdomen that it was no longer infested with the ignorance of disease, that idea of disease. And I went on to the life centers in my body and spoke words of truth to them, words of strength and words of power. I asked their forgiveness for the foolish, ignorant course that I had pursued in the past, when I had condemned them and called them weak and inefficient and diseased. I did not become discouraged at their being slow to wake up." In fact, she went on to work on this for several years before her cure came. She goes on to say, "I kept right on, both silently and aloud, declaring words of truth until the organs responded." So, after 2 years, she was cured of both of these diseases that she had. She was no longer terminally ill. She went on to live for many, many more years. So, Charles had a health condition too, and he tried her way, thinking that it was the way. Nothing happened. He was very frustrated, and so he decided that he would go straight to headquarters. he would just pray and meditate for the way, and nothing happened. And then later, he had these very clear dreams, and in the dreams, he was given the message: all you need to do is affirm the truth. All you need to do is declare statements of truth. That became his way. And Charles Fillmore, who, as a child in a skating accident, broke his leg up to the hip. It was 4 inches differential. He was walking with a cane, and he was in a lot of pain. He gradually cured himself of this condition. And once again, people flocked to them and to unity and to silent unity and to churches all over. And it was physical healing that created this attraction to the Unity Church. But notice that Charles and Myrtle Fillmore didn't subscribe that this is the way. They insisted that each person needs to try out different things and what works for them by tapping into their own divinity. That's the key. So Charles and Myrtle were essentially mystics. And what does that mean, mystics? Mystics means that you don't have to pray through something. You don't have to pray through the priest or through a minister. There is no intermediary. You can go direct to God in your own way, and you will find the answer by asking in your own way. There's no dogma. And 6 months ago, I said, unity is not a religion. And that's not really well known, but unity is not a religion. They are a movement, a spiritual movement. And the reason why is because there is no dogma, there is no sacrament, there is no prayer that we must say. No one at ministerial school tells me that I must say certain things on the pulpit, or that you must do certain things to be saved from your errant thoughts, right? But the principles throughout all of the writings in this book, I would highly recommend this book. Has anybody seen this book? What's the title? It's called How to Let God Help You. And this is the book that, Charles' writings are very head-based, and for me, I needed something that was just grabbed me from the heart. From page 1, this grabbed me by the heart. I'm considering having a book study on this book, because Myrtle didn't actually write this book. This was compiled from all of her letters and all of her articles after her death. But it is amazing how to let God help you. So, I want to read something from How to Let God Help You. The visible universe is, and this is, once again, this is a lady 100 years ago. She wasn't a physicist. Einstein and quantum physics wasn't mainstream like it is today. The visible universe is but the externalization of thoughts. These forms are of many grades in density, or as the physical scientists would say, molecular vibration. So she was talking about vibration. And she said, the real human is not any of these forms. The real human is the force that causes these forms to exist. And when the human knows this, all phases of phenomenal life come under their dominion. So when you know that it's your mind that is the creative force behind all things, hence New Thought, right? So Center for Spiritual Living, Unity, they're all called New Thought. It's changing your thinking and changing your life, okay? And she finishes by saying, the body has its origin in the mind, and it can be successfully regulated from this point, all right? So this is amazing for 100-year-old writing. So I skip forward past the Fillmores. I'm going to take 2 more steps in this talk about the healing journey. 130 years later, to last week, as I was preparing for the talk called The Healing Power and I got sick, I remembered everybody has some physical ailment. Is there anybody in this room that has no physical ailment of any kind? It is said that it is a very, very micro portion of the population that answers the survey saying, I have no physical ailment of any kind. So can we be whole? Can we be perfect? Can we be complete? We can be perfect in our wholeness, regardless of our imperfections, okay? So I fast forward to how we can heal using the power of our mind. There's someone named Joe Dispenza. Are you familiar with Joe Dispenza? He is a popular New Thought author, very huge following, and he talks about something called the feedback loop. And I figured I would share this with you today, where the mind reacts to the body, and the body reacts to the mind. So if you're thinking negative thoughts, let's just start here, what happens? Those thoughts are pure consciousness. They're pure energy. And those thoughts create little chemicals to happen, little chemical reactions in your head, neurotransmitters start to do their things, and pretty soon, your thoughts have created something in your physicality, okay? It's like if you think of a lemon meringue pie and your mouth might water, in that instant, you've gone from pure energy to a biological change in your body. So expand that to, well, gosh, what can I do about healing? Okay? So think about this. If you're thinking negative thoughts, that kicks off this process where something happens in your biochemistry, and then if you're thinking negative thoughts like I'm sick, then is your body going to feel as well? Probably not. Then when your body doesn't feel as well, guess what? Your mind reacts by saying, ooh, I feel like crap. I feel like crap. I feel depressed. I'm down. And then what happens? Your body starts to listen. Neurotransmitters go into your body saying, I'm bummed out, and you feel worse. So this conversation keeps on going on. Your body's listening to your mind's listening to your body. We've got to break this cycle, according to Joe Dispenza. This is so wise. So how do we break this vicious cycle, this brain-body feedback loop? By awareness that it's happening. By awareness, seeing through new eyes, that it's happening. By changing your thinking. Changing your thinking will change your life. Changing your thinking will change your life. And when in doubt, think about your divinity. Think about your power. Thoughts matter. Case in point. I'm reaching the end here. I'm gonna talk about an author named Stephen Levine. He is a highly regarded author on death and dying. He's amazing to listen to if you find a YouTube video with Stephen Levine. He said, "We are conditioned to send hatred into our pain. We're conditioned to curse the pain. And that throbbing knee is in need of mercy. It's in need of kindness, isn't it? So send forgiveness into your injury. Send mercy, not anger. How can any part of us heal if we hate it? How can any part of us heal if we hate it?" And that's what Myrtle Fillmore did. She said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, liver. I'm sorry, lungs, that I said I hate you for being sick. I love you. I no longer see you as diseased," okay? So when a child has an injured finger, you put a Band-Aid on it, and what does the mother do? Anybody? Kiss it. Say, "Oh, that's a boo-boo." They kiss the boo-boo, right? So that is the love, and that is the mercy. But when we injure ourselves later on in life, we don't give ourselves always that love and that compassion. So what kind of consciousness are you sending your body? I went through some pains in my knee, and I noticed that I was cursing that darn knee, the worse it got. So I decided I would borrow the consciousness of the good knee. I would only think about the good, healed knee. And I would only send thoughts of compassion, mercy, and kindness and perfection into that knee. So that's the kind of thinking that we need. The greatest healing, I'll sum this talk up, is the greatest healing is in changing our mind. So I'll read one more thing in closing from How to Let God Help You. And I have so many bookmarks, I couldn't find it again. But trust me, it's in there. "As we trust and rely upon the great invisible giver, so surely shall we receive from our only source and supply. Whatever may seem the lack or need, the supply is at hand, because God's world is crammed full of health. God's world is crammed full of health." So if it's health that you want, say so. The great answerer makes no mistake. We get just what we ask for, and so it is.